Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear viewers, in the previous episode of this topic number 6, we had discussed the arrangement of the respective Masahif of Ubayy ibn Kaab and Abdullah ibn Masud anhum, the way they have been handed out to us in history. And I had also pointed out that as far as the Al-Fahrist is concerned, which is one of the premier books which reports this different arrangement, we find an eyewitness account. And in the case of Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran of Suyuti, we find that these two people, or these two Sahaba, the Masahif being attributed to them are reported, the arrangement is just reported the way it was found in their Masahif. And also in the previous episode, if you remember, we had in detail discussed how this arrangement is different in all these four lists. We had also viewed in detail all these lists individually and also tried to interpret them the way they have been interpreted by our past authorities, as well as in some places in which there is some ambiguity. Now, in today's session, inshallah, I will try to analyze the matan and the chain of narration of Ubayy ibn Kaab's mushaf the way we had discussed it the last time. And we shall see how these two aspects, the matan aspect and the isnad aspect, can be related to historical criticism. Now, first we'll start off with historical criticism or points of criticism which arise on the matan of the texts which report a different arrangement of the Quran vis-a-vis Ubayy ibn Kaab anhu. The first of these points that arise in my mind is that it is none of Ubayy's students which report this different arrangement. We find several of his students, for example, Hafiz Mizzi in his Tahzib al-Kamal has said that some of his famous students include Abdullah ibn Abbas, Anas ibn Malik, Abu Musa al-Ashari, Abu Huraira, Zir ibn Hubaysh, Sayyid ibn al-Musayyib, anhum. All of them are very famous students of Ubayy ibn Kaab, but none of these students and the students of these students and so on and so forth report this different arrangement from their student, from their teacher. It was but natural in those times that students and the students of their students would transmit whatever they had been told or whatever they had been passed on by their teacher. But it is strange, and it is extremely strange, that his immediate students and the students of his students have not reported any differently arranged Quran by Ubayy ibn Kaab. And now this is something very important, because in those times it was a customary that students would transmit the knowledge of their teacher in a very profound manner. But it is strange that none of Ubayy's students have transmitted this differently arranged mushaf attributed to him. On the contrary, we find people in the 3rd century reporting this different arrangement. Thus, for example, Fazl ibn Shazan, which reports this different arrangement in Ibn Nadim's Al-Fahrist. He lived in the 3rd century, and similarly in Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran of Suyuti, this arrangement has been recorded by on the authority of Ibn Ashta in his Kitab al-Masahif, and he also narrates this different arrangement from a person called Abu Ja'far al-Kufi, and as we shall see later on, he is also a person who belongs to the 3rd century. So the point that is being made is that all in all, for the first time after a couple of centuries, after 250 years maybe, this different arrangement has come to surface. This, of course, is a big anomaly. Why in these 200 years or 250 years which elapsed between the actual mushaf and the time when it surfaced in history, why is it that no one talks about these Masahif, or no one says that they were differently arranged? So this is one very, very weighty critique that comes to my mind. The second thing that also is very prominent is that if we compare the two lists of Ubayy's differently arranged mushaf, the way have been recorded in Al-Itqan and in Al-Fahrist, you can see that after the first 20 entries, these lists start to diverge. The arrangement is very common in the first 20 entries, the way the surahs are arranged, it's exactly the same. But after the first 20 entries, the surahs are differently arranged in both these lists. So the question arises, which is the correct one? Because one list has a different arrangement, and another list has a different arrangement, and both are ascribed to Ubayy ibn Kaab. So again, the question arises that which one to believe and which not to. The third point of criticism views that arises is that we know that the Quran was collected and compiled once again after after it was revealed. So the current Quran is not in its chronological sequence, it is in a new sequence. So why, if at all these lists existed, why should not we believe that perhaps these were the arrangement of the surahs which Ubayy respectively and Ibn Masud, as we shall see later on, perhaps one very far-fetched interpretation could be that perhaps it was their initial arrangement when the Quran had not been given its final arrangement. So perhaps these lists are, if at all they are true, then perhaps they could be portraying what the situation was before the Quran was arranged in its current sequence. So perhaps this was the case. And then, viewers, we also come to the fourth point in which we find there is some discrepancy as well in this list. Thus, for example, in the list given by Al-Fahrist of Ibn Nadim, we find that Surah Teen and Surah Abas are repeated twice. They of course could not have come twice. So there is some error again in the list. And then again, the fifth point of criticism is that again in the list of Al-Fahrist of Ibn Nadim, at the end you would remember it says in all there are 116 surahs. But when we count this list, when we count the number of surahs in this list, it comes out to be 104. So again, this refers to the defective nature of the list. And finally, viewers, we come to the very prominent addition in these arrangement of attributed to Ubayy ibn Kaab, and that is the addition of two additional surahs called Surah Hafd and Surah Khal. And they have been variously called. So this is something which also needs our attention, and one of the celebrated scholars of the past, Al-Baqillani, in his Intisar, has also criticized the addition or the existence of these two surahs in the mushaf of Ubayy. He says that had these been part of the Quran, then they should have been submitted or transmitted the way the rest of the Quran is, in a widely pervasive manner. How is it that we find these lists in such an isolated manner? The second point that he raises is that it is only certain reports which say that Ubayy had these surahs incorporated in his mushaf, and why should not we believe that perhaps he had just written these surahs there as a point of remembrance, just to remind himself that these are important. These are two important du'as or two important supplications ascribed to the Prophet, and which were also read in the witr prayer, and they were also called the kunut. So he says that it is debatable that mere existence or mere report of the existence of these two surahs should be proof enough of the fact that they were actually regarded by Ubayy to be part of the Quran. He could have just written them, he says, perhaps just as a case of reminder. And again, in the third point that he raises is that had this been the case, that Ubayy's mushaf would have contained two additional surahs, then he reminds us that in the times of the Caliph Osman, we know that he had made a very concerted effort to find out all the differently arranged and differently compiled Qur'ans, and he had confiscated them. And we also even find a narrative in the Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawud, in which the two sons of Ubayy are actually asked, one of them is Muhammad and the other one, his name is Tufail, and they are asked about the mushaf of their father, and the reply that they give is that it has been confiscated by Osman. So he says that if this is the situation, then how come people say that they saw it and that it was the mushaf of Anas ibn Malik, because we know that it also contained a dua of Qunut. So if the mushaf had been confiscated in the times of Osman, so how come people saw it, as we find the eyewitness account in, for example, Al-Fahrist, which says that we found the mushaf of Ubayy. So why should we not regard it to be a forgery? Because as he says that both sons had said that it had already been taken by Osman. Now we also need to understand this fact, viewers, that Schrawley, for example, Friedrich Schrawley, in his revised edition of Nordike's Geschrichte, has said he has actually commented in detail about the chronicity of these two surahs. He's actually raised linguistic reasons for rejecting both these surahs. He thinks that these two surahs could not have been part of the Quran because linguistically there are certain issues. And while referring to the text of these surahs, Shawli quotes their text on the authority of various sources, which I'm just going to construct before you, and the way he has constructed through parallel sources. He points out that they have been variously called as Surah Khal and Surah Hafd, surahs of Qunut, even Surah Qunut, Dua al-Fajr, and Ad-Dua. And he says that the last three names show that they are not actually surahs of the Quran, and they are just supplication or du'as. So he says that this is a strong case which is made out of this fact that these are basically supplications and they cannot be called surahs which are part of the Quran. Now, as far as the text of the surahs itself is concerned, Shawli has gone on to construct it, as I just said, and he has used parallel sources to construct these texts, and he has cited Tashko Bruzada, for example, in his Mawsu'a Mustalahat Miftah al-Sa'ada fi wa Misbah al-Siyada bi Mawdu'at al-Ulum. This is the book by Tashko Bruzada, so he has used this book to construct the text, and he has also used Birjili, and he also says that the sources quoted by Suyuti all belong to the 1st century. So now I'm going to present before you the Surah Khal, which is the first of these surahs, as is constructed by Shawli in his Geschrichte, the revised edition of Nordike's Geschrichte. And as you can see, viewers, on your screen, this is the surah, and I'll also read out the discrepancies or the additions which some of the other sources have. So the exact surah cited by Shawli as regards to Surah Khal, he says that it is written as Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruka wa nusni alayk wa la nakfuruka wa nakhla'u wa natruku man yafjuruk. So this is how he narrates Surah Khal. He says this is the surah which is attributed to Ubayy and is called Surah Khal. And he also then cites Surah Hafd. And Surah Hafd, according to him, is Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa laka nusalli wa nasjudu wa ilayka nas'a wa nahfidu wa narju rahmataka wa nakhsha azabaka inna azabaka bil kuffari mulhiq. So these are the broad words of these surahs. But again, as I said, that since he has constructed them through parallel sources, so it is essential that we also look at how there are some variants of this text. For example, viewers, in Surah Khal, let's go back to the first of the surah, Surah Khal. It starts off with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And now Shawli says that the Bismillah is not present in the text cited by Zamakhshari in his exegesis of Surah Yunus, in a narrative of Al-Itqan, and in the Landberg mushaf, which of course is 343, and the numbers, subcategories are 1, 3, 4, and 5. So he says that this is not present the way it is present here. It is not present in Zamakhshari in his exegesis of Surah Yunus. It is because he cited it there. It's also not present in the narrative given by Itqan, which is the number 2 narrative, and in the Landberg manuscript. Okay, now next move on to the next variant, the next part of this variant, and the next, as you can see, is Allahumma inna nasta'inuka, as this begins. So nasta'inuka is again something which has a variation, and Shawli points out that Birjili has the word wa nastahdika after nasta'inuka. So this is an addition in Birjili's edition of this surah. And the next part that he reconstructs is regarding nastaghfiruka, which is the next word. And he says that the Landberg manuscript, 343 and subcategory number 6, the words here are nu'minu bika wa nakhda'u laka. So after wa nastaghfiruka, the words, there are some additional words, and they are nu'minu bika wa nakhda'u laka. And Birjili has the words wa nastahdika wa nu'minu bika wa natubu ilayka wa natawakkalu alayka. So these are the words which Birjili adds after nastaghfiruka. Now again, as far as the next edition is concerned, or next variation is concerned, this is found after wa nusni alayka. So after nusni alayka, Shawli says that in the narrative of Al-Itqan, he says that it has the words khaira, which means nusni alayka al-khair. And Birjili after this adds the word wa nusni alayka al-khaira kullahu nashkuruka. So this is the addition which Birjili makes at this point. The next addition is made, or the next variation exists, viewers, in the word wala nakfuruka. And here Shawli says that Birjili adds the words wa nakhda'u laka. So the word is نكفرك ونخضع لك ولا نكفرك ونخضع لك. And in number 6th point, viewers, he says the next part, number 6, now belongs to Surah Hafd. And as you would remember, the Surah of Hafd begins with Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa laka nusalli. So he says that in Surah Hafd, as you can see, the words are Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa laka nusalli. And after wa laka nusalli, he says that Tashkub Razada does not give this part. So this is how he has explained this. And viewers, the next variation exists after Nakhsha Azabaka, again, it's in Surah Hafs. He says that a narrative in Itqan and the manuscript of 343 of Landberg, numbers 1 and 3, places Nakhsha Azabaka before Narju Rahmataka. So he says this precedes Narju Rahmataka. And as far as the 8th variation is concerned, it exists after Inna Azabaka bil Kuffar. It is right here that it lies. And Shawli says that this is the text of Al-Itqan, Al-Fahrist, Al-Kashaf, the Landberg manuscript 343 and subcategories 2, 4, 5 and 6, and Birjili. In contrast, he says, a narrative in Al-Itqan, Landberg manuscript and Tashkir Bazada have Bil Kafirin. So instead of Bil Kuffar, it has Bil Kafirin. And viewers, now let me also cite before you the text which has been cited by Tashkir Bazada. And when I say Tashkir Bazada, I of course refer to his book Mawsuha Mustalahat Miftah al-Sa'ada wa Misbah al-Siyada bil Mawdu'at al-Ulum. And he has cited both these surahs, which I'm now going to put before you. So Surah Khal is Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruka wa nusni alayka wa la nakfuruka wa nakhla'u wa natruku man yafjuruk. And Surah Hafd is Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa laka nusalli wa nasjudu wa ilayka nas'a wa nahfidu narju rahmataka wa nakhsha azabaka inna azabaka bil kafirina mulhiq. So this is how these sources cite Surah Khal and Surah Hafd, and you can clearly see that basically these are divisions of the present day dua of Qunut that Muslims generally read in their witr prayer. I should also like to point out that the first person to publish the text of these surahs in the West was Perkstall Hammer, has also been pointed out by Shawli. He is the person who has for the first time introduced these to the West, these surahs. Now, viewers, this is as far as the construction of these surahs is concerned, the way they have been reported and reconstructed and presented by these scholars. Another point that I would like to bring before you is that Shawli has also gone on to criticize the existence of these two surahs on the basis of the fact that their Arabic or their the stylistics used in these two particular surahs is not in conformity with Quranic and classical Arabic, and he has raised a number of points as per which he thinks that these two surahs could not have been part of the Quran. Now what I'm going to do is present all his points and also in response present my view or analysis of his points so that we can see whether what he has come up with is, in my humble opinion, correct or not. Now, the first point which Shawli makes, and when I say Shawli, of course, this is Geschichte, or the part of Geschichte cited or translated as Tariq al-Quran by George Stamers. So he says that there is only one instance in the Quran where the word ista'ana occurs as an object, and that is in Surah Fatiha. So viewers, what he's saying is in this particular surah, Surah Khal, the words are inna nasta'inuka. And here, of course, we have the word ista'ana occurring with an object. So he says that there is just one other instance, and that is in Surah Fatiha, in which we find that this verb ista'ana occurs with an object or a maf'ul. So he says that this usage itself is something which is very rare. But my own submission in this regard is that he is not correct here, I'm afraid. And because we can see that even if there is a single usage of the word ista'ana with a maf'ul, as is the case with Surah Fatiha, it is sufficient to prove that this word occurs such that it is used transitively with a maf'ul, with an object. And moreover, lexicons like Ibn Manzur's Lisan al-Arab, for example, specifically they say that it takes a direct object, it takes a maf'ul. And Even in the Quran, there is an example in which we find that the word ista'ana is related to its maf'ul, although it's through a preposition, and this is something very, very common. Thus, for example, the words in Surah Araf are قال موسى لقومه استعينوا بالله واصبروا. Ista'inu billahi wasbiru. So you can clearly see, viewers, that the word billah here, the word Allah here is the maf'ul or the object. Only the difference is the word ista'ana is used with its preposition. So this is again a point which I would not accept as far as Shawli's criticism is concerned. The second point that he has raised is actually, it has two parts. He says the word, as you can see in Surah Khal, there are two words used, asna and hafada. These are the two verbs used in slightly different forms, but the basic root is asna and hafada. Now he says that as far as asna is concerned, it has not been used in the Quran, and the words which are actually used, which have a similar meaning, are kabbara, sabbaha, and hamida. He says these are the words which the Quran has used. So why is it that here also it has not used either of these three words and used a different word? And the other objection, a similar objection that he raises, is that the verb hafada also does not occur in the Quran. So he says that asna and hafada are two words which are alien to the Quran, and so why should we accept that these two words, which obviously are found in Surah Khal, they should be considered as true. Now, viewers, here again, the important point that we need to understand is that both these words, asna and hafada, they are common classical Arabic words. And if they occur once in any classical Arabic text, then it is sufficient to prove that they are part of classical Arabic. So therefore, by simply dismissing the fact that the word has not been used in the Quran, so therefore it is not a word to be accepted, is, I think, something which is very, very far-fetched. And I think that asna and hafada are two very, very common classical Arabic words. Any person who has knowledge of classical Arabic would find that these words abundantly exist in classical Arabic. So therefore, if someone contends otherwise, the onus of proof rests on him. It is on him to prove that these are not classical Arabic words. Okay, the fourth point of his critique is that the verb sa'a occurs many times in the Quran. However, it has never occurred with the words ilallah. Now, the point that he's making is that since here we find the words which are used here are wa ilayka nas'a. So Surah Haft, now we are now coming to Surah Haft. So the words in Surah Haft are wa ilayka nas'a. And he says is that it has never occurred with the word ilallah. So sa'a has never occurred with the word ilallah. And he also makes a point that we must not cite the Quranic verse fas'au ila zikrillah, the famous verse of Surah Jumu'ah, in support against his claim, because he says that here the word sa'i has been used fas'au ila zikrillah. It's not fas'au ilallah. So he says that here governing noun or muzaf exists. So he says that if someone has to go against me, then he should not cite this verse, because it is not of the same pattern. So my submission in this regard is here again, surely I'm afraid is not correct, because even in his own case, when it has the way it has been cited in Surah Haft, it is wa ilayka nas'a. So here also we find that there is a governing noun actually suppressed. So when we say ilayka nas'a, it does not mean that we are running towards God. Actually, there is another noun which is suppressed here. For example, it could be wa ila rahmatika nas'a. It could be a number of things which describe or which relate to God's attributes can be considered as suppressed here. So even here, when he says that the word ilallah or the word sa'a has not been used in relation to ilallah, he should understand that in his own example, wa ilayka nas'a, here too, actually it is not that the word sa'a is related to God, or sa'a ila is related to God, because here again a muzaf is suppressed. So in my humble view, it would be something like wa ila rahmatika nas'a. So something of the effect. So ila rahmatika nas'a. So I would say that this is again his contention is not correct. And if someone asks that this suppression of muzaf or this suppression of the governing noun is common in this scenario, in this style. I would say there's something very common. For example, we find in Surah Hajj, the words are وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. Now, again, scholars like Abu Hayyan, for example, they have specified when we say وَجَاهِدُوا فِي fillah, we say strive for God, strive in God. Again, this is something which is very clear to tell us that here again a governing noun has been suppressed, a muzaf has been suppressed, and the actual construction would be wajahidu fi dinillah. So strive in the way of God's religion would be the exact construction. So all in all, this point which is raised by Shawli, in which he says that the word sa'a does not occur with ilallah, is not correct, because in the first place, as I said, sa'a ilallah, as the way it is occurring here, is something which is not directly relating to God. There is a part suppressed here, which means ila rahmatika nas'a. So this contention that he says is not correct. And I've also cited that the suppression of a noun is very common when it comes as a governing noun. Now the fifth point that he's raised in this regard, viewers, is that the word fajara, as you can see in Surah Khal, the word used is man yafjuruk. So man yafjuruk, he says that it is used transitively in this place. Yet it is used intransitively in the Quran, and he cites two places. One of them is in Surah Qiyamah, which is bal yuridul insanu liyafjura amama, and the other one is fa'alhamaha fujuraha wa taqwaha. Now here he says that, so his point is that in this dua of kunut, it is used transitively, which means that it takes a word, it takes a maf'ul, it requires a maf'ul. However, he says in other places in the Quran, this is not the case. Now let me see, or let me critically see and analyze what he has said here by citing those appropriate verses. The first verse that he says is bal yuridul insanu liyafjura amama. Again here, viewers, he is not exactly correct. For example, in the view of famous scholars like Amin Hassan Islahi, the object of the verb here is suppressed. So it would be something like bal yuridul insanu liyafjurallaha amama. So in fact, the word Allah is here, is the maf'ul here, and if we accept this, then again we can clearly see that the word fajara is used transitively. It takes an object. And in the second example that he is quoted, he is, I'm afraid, entirely wrong, because here it does not even occur as a verb. Fujur here occurs as a noun, as you can clearly see. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Fujur here is not used as a verb, it is used as a noun, and is used as in fact a plural noun. The sixth point of criticism that he makes is that the word khala, as you can see that in Surah Khal, the words are وَنَخْلَعُ وَنَتْرُكُ. So he says the word nakhla here is never used metaphorically in this sense in the Quran. He says that khala just occurs once in the Quran in Surah Taha, where the famous words are فَخْلَعْ نَعْلَيْكَ, take off your shoes, O Moses. So he says that here the word khala is used in the literal sense and is nowhere used in the Quran in the metaphorical sense, the way it has been used here in the dua of kunut. Now again, this is also no point of criticism because we find that it is used metaphorically in a number of places in Arabic literature. Let me just cite one couplet of Muhalhal ibn Rabi'a, the famous Jahiliyyah poet. He says, and you can see the couplet being displayed before you, وَلَسْتُ بِخَالِعٍ دِرْعِي وَسَيْفِي إِلَىٰ أَنْ يَخْلَعَ اللَّيْلُ النَّهَارِ, which means, which can clearly see that in the first hemistish or the first misra of this couplet, it is used literally, because it says وَلَسْتُ بِخَالِعٍ دِرْعِي وَسَيْفِي, I'm not going to take off or shed my armor or my sword. However, in the second hemistish, in the second misra, as you can see, the words are إِلَىٰ أَنْ يَخْلَعَ اللَّيْلُ النَّهَارِ, until the night sheds the day. Now here you can clearly see that the verb khala is used metaphorically. It of course cannot be used literally. So viewers, again, this contention of Shawli is not correct, that the word khala is not used metaphorically, because as I said, to be used metaphorically is not something that is confined to the Quran. As far as we can find an example from classical Arabic in which a verb is used metaphorically, that should suffice. And this particular couplet which I have just cited uses this verb metaphorically as well. Now, let me come to the last criticism which is pointed out by Shawli. Now, this last criticism relates to the usage of the word nakfuruka, which is found in Surah Hal. He says that this is a suspect use. And why? Because he says the verb kafara in the meaning of ankara or rejection is only used in the Quran with the preposition be or ba appended to it. And he is absolutely correct here. Wherever the word kafara is used in the meaning of rejection, the preposition ba is used. Kafara be is the standard Arabic pattern in this regard. But again, he does not seem to understand this fact that the here kafara is not used in the meaning of rejection. It is not used in the meaning of rejection. Actually, it is used in the meaning of ingratitude. Kafara in the meaning of ingratitude, to show ingratitude, is something very common. And we can see that there are textual variants of this narrative in which it occurs adjacent to nashkuruka, which means, oh God, we are thankful to you, wala nakfuruka, and we are not unthankful to you, we are not ungrateful to you. So in my submission, the word kafara here does not mean rejection. And he's rightly pointed out that whenever it occurs such, it has to have a preposition ba, and it does not occur here. But I, as I said, am of the view that the word kafara here means ingratitude, and this is something very common in Arabic. And when it occurs in this meaning, it does not require a preposition. So all in all, viewers, I think that all the points of criticism which have been presented by Shawli, they don't hold water and they don't hold ground. And this does not mean that, obviously, in my view, that these two surahs should be regarded as part of the Quran. The criticism that these surahs are not part of the Quran has already been presented before you. And since it is a composite criticism which encompasses the surahs or the codex of Ubayy ibn Kaab, so therefore this individual criticism also applies to these surahs. This criticism. The only thing that I have pointed out here in the last few minutes is that the contention of Shawli that these two surahs cannot be regarded as part of the Quran because their Arabic is not correct, is not correct. There is no flaw as far as their Arabic is concerned, in my humble opinion. However, the reason why these two surahs have not been or should not be regarded as part of the Quran are other reasons which I pointed out in the beginning. Now, viewers, let me analyze the chain of narration of these two narratives which tell us that Ubayy's mushaf had a different arrangement. As you would recall, one of them is found in Al-Fahrist of Ibn Nadim, and the other one is found in Al-Itqan of Suyuti. So let me analyze this chain of narration in both these two narratives, and which will then bring us to the end of the discussion regarding Ubayy's mushaf. And inshallah, in future we'll take up Abdullah ibn Masud's mushaf and critically view the narratives which bring forth his arrangement. Now, let me first cite the chain of narration, which you can see is the arrangement of Al-Fahrist, as you can see being displayed on the screen before you. The chain of narration part is قال الفضل بن شازان أخبرنا الثقة من أصحابنا قال كان تأليف السور في قراءة أبي بن قاب البصرة في قرية يقال لها قرية الأنصار على رأس فرسخين عند محمد بن عبد الملك الأنصاري أخرج لنا مصحفا وقال هو مصحف أبي رويناه عن آبائنا. Which means Al-Fazl ibn Shazan said that one of his trustworthy associates informed him that the scheme of arrangement of the surahs according to the reading of Ubayy was found in the village of Al-Ansar, situated 2 farsakhs from Basra, with a person called Muhammad ibn Malik al-Ansari. Now, he brought a copy of the Quran to us and said that this is the mushaf of Ubayy, which has been narrated by our generations from our forefathers. So this is the chain of narration as far as it is found in the Fahrist of Ibn Nadim. Now, the critical point here is that in this particular report, we find that Fazl ibn Shazan died in 260 Hijrah. He is a person who died in 260 Hijrah. He reports seeing a mushaf belonging to Ubayy. We do not find the name of the person from whom Al-Fazl reports. As you can see clearly, Fazl says, أخبرنا الثقة من أصحابنا. He says, one of my trustworthy associates has reported him. But on the principles of historical criticism, unless he names who the person is, we cannot be sure who that person is, and therefore we cannot rely on that report. And also, Ibn Nadim himself has not disclosed his source from which he acquired or from whom he acquired these words of Fazl ibn Shazan. So we know that Ibn Nadim lived much later than Fazl ibn Shahzan. So who are the people in between Ibn Nadim and Al-Fazl ibn Shahzan, on the basis of which we can say that this is something which Ibn Nadim reports in a trustworthy manner. So in my view, viewers, the chain of narration of this arrangement found in Al-Fahrista of Ibn Nadim of the Codex of Ubayy ibn Kaab, the way it has been reported here, does not hold to the test of historical criticism. Now let me move on to the chain of narration of this mushaf, the way it has been recorded in Al-Itqan of Suyuti. And here it is not an eyewitness account. Here the words are, the actual word which Suyuti has recorded are قال ابن أشتى في كتاب المصاحف أنبأنا محمد بن يعقوب حدثنا أبو داود حدثنا أبو جعفر الكوفي قال هذا تأليف مصحف أبي. And then we find that arrangement coming following these words. So Ibn Ashta has said in his Kitab al-Masahif, we were informed by Muhammad ibn Yaqub that Abu Dawud narrated to us that Abu Ja'far al-Kufi said. Following is the arrangement of Ubayy's mushaf, and then he goes on to describe the arrangement, which we have already seen earlier. So here, viewers, we find that basically Suyuti is citing Ibn Ashta and his Kitab al-Masahif, and then he is citing his chain of narration. Now, it needs to be understood that Ubayy's surah arrangement, as is recorded by Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Ashta, it has itself a chain of narration. The chain obviously is broken because it begins with someone who is the informant of Abu Dawud, and Abu Dawud Sulaiman ibn al-Ash'as, who died in 257 Hijrah. Now we know that Abu Dawud, who is actually Sulaiman ibn al-Ash'as, the famous compiler of hadith, his book Sunan Abu Dawud is part of the 6 canonical books of the Muslims. So his informant is Abu Ja'far al-Kufi. And this person, Abu Ja'far al-Kufi, is a person who belongs to a much earlier era than the era of much later era than the era of Ubayy, because there is almost 2 centuries which lapse between the two. However, there is one problem here, and that problem is that it is difficult to identify who Abu Ja'far al-Kufi is, because Abu Ja'far al-Kufi is the name of many informants, and I have located at least 6 of them. Now, research shows that these are the following 6 possibilities of Abu Ja'far al-Kufi, but as you can see, as I can show to you, that none of them could be contemporaneous to Ubayy's times. They existed much later. Thus, for example, there is a person called Ahmed ibn Umar ibn Hafs ibn Jaham ibn Waqid ibn Abdullah al-Kindi. He died in 235 Hijrah. Then we have Muhammad ibn Tarif ibn Khalifa al-Bajli. He died in 242 Hijrah. As the first of these dates has been given by Al-Mizzi in his Tahzib al-Kamal, and Al-Bajli's date of death, which is 242, this has been given by Ibn Hajar in his Tahzib al-Tahzib. Now the third person is actually Muhammad ibn Ubayd al-Muharibi, and he died in 245 Hijrah, and this has been given by Az-Zahabi in his Kashif. Al-Kashif is this date of death. The fourth possible person in this regard is Muhammad ibn Sawwar ibn Rashid al-Azdi, who died in 248 Hijrah, and this date of death has been given by Ibn Hajar in his Tahzib al-Tahzib. The fifth possible person, who is also called Abu Ja'far al-Kufi, is now all of these are obviously informants of Abu Dawud, and as you can see, all of these are informants of Abu Dawud, but none of them can be the person who could be contemporaneous to Ubayy. So the fifth one is Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn Sulaiman al-Kindi al-Bazzaz al-Dharir, who died in 248 Hijrah, and this has been given by Az-Zahabi also in his book Al-Kashif. And finally, the sixth person, Abu Ja'far al-Kufi in this regard, is Muhammad ibn Usman ibn Karama al-Ijli al-Warraq, who died in 256 Hijrah, and this has been again given by Az-Zahabi in his Al-Kashif. So these are the 6 Abu Ja'far al-Kufis who were the informants of Abu Dawud, and as you can see from their dates of death, that they could never or ever have been contemporaneous with Ubayy. They are at least 2 centuries or 1.5 century plus lapse between the two, and between Ubayy and any of these 6 people. And so we can clearly see that this narrative is broken. So viewers, we can come to this conclusion by now that not only the text of the narratives which report Ubayy ibn Kaab's different textual arrangement or different arrangement of the surahs is faulty and has a number of questions raised on it, but also the chain of narration of both these narratives which report a different arrangement is very suspect, because both these arrangements report that this particular arrangement was discovered 2 centuries after Ubayy's death, maybe. And in these 2 centuries, we find no such report. It is only after these 2 centuries that people have surfaced and told us of a different arrangement. Obviously, this is something of an anomaly and cannot be accepted. So, inshallah, in the next session, we shall analyze the mushaf of Abdullah ibn Masud and see whether, like Ubayy ibn Kaab's mushaf, the questions which arise on its text and its chain of narration, they hold up to the test of historical criticism or not. Till then, أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.